Sir, that man behind you, he's been following you since the corner. The voice came from somewhere near the ground, low, careful, the kind of voice that had learned not to be too loud in places where being too loud costs something. Dorian Fisk stopped at the top of the subway stairs on Market Street, his leather briefcase still swinging from the momentum of his walk. He was 63 years old and had spent 4 decades in courtrooms where knowing when to stop talking was the difference between winning and losing. So he stopped, and he listened. "Say that again," he said without turning around. "The man in the blue cap. He's been on your left since the parking garage. He has his hand inside his jacket, and he's watching your back." The voice was a child's, a girl's, maybe 8, maybe 9. It had the particular flatness of a child who has been serious for too long. "He keeps checking his phone, but only after he checks where you are first." Dorian did not move toward the stairs. The morning rush pressed around him like a river rerouting itself. Commuters splitting and flowing past, without slowing, without looking. He had learned a long time ago that the most dangerous moments were the ones that happened. In Publix, in plain sight, in the places people assumed were safe because other people were there. He had prosecuted enough cases to know better. "Where are you?" he asked. "By the newspaper box. To your right, I can see him from here because I'm low." He turned his head slightly, just enough. The child was exactly where she said she was, crouched at the base of the newspaper dispensers, her knees pulled up, a plastic grocery bag in her lap. She was small and dark-haired and wearing a coat 3 sizes too large that might have once been yellow. Her sneakers had no laces. "How close is he?" Dorian asked. 8 steps. He moved up when you stopped. He doesn't want to lose you on the stairs." The stairs. A crowd, a push, a fall onto a concrete platform 40 feet below. Dorian had handled exactly one case in his career involving a subway staircase and had never forgotten the medical examiner's testimony. The word used had been catastrophic. He breathed evenly, the way he breathed during cross-examination when the witness was lying and he needed the jury to see him calm. "I'm going to walk back the way I came," he said quietly, addressing the air in front of him rather than the child, so that anyone watching would see only a man reconsidering his route. "I'd like you to walk beside me, not behind me, beside me, like we're going the same direction for ordinary reasons. Can you do that?" A pause. "Yes." She came up from her crouch without hurrying. He matched her pace. They walked west along Market, away from the stairs, and he counted 20 steps before he allowed himself to exhale. "Is he following?" He stopped at the top of the stairs. "He's watching." The other man, the one who was waiting at the bottom, he already came up. They're talking. There was a second man. Dorian filed this the way he filed everything, quickly, without editorializing, and kept walking. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sage." "Sage, my name is Dorian. I need to make a call. While I do, I need you to keep watching and tell me if either of those men starts moving in our direction." He reached into his breast pocket for his phone. "You don't have to look directly at them. Look at the window reflections." "I know," she said simply. "That's how I always watch." He called his assistant, Roberta Vale. She answered before the second ring. "Mr. Fisk." "Roberta, I need you to call the car service and have them send someone to the corner of Market and 19th. Not the usual car. Tell them a dark sedan, someone I will recognize by name when they step out. The name is Darnell. He drove me last November. Tell them it's a security situation." He paused. "Also call Raymond's office." Raymond Cho was the only attorney he still fully trusted at the firm he had retired from. "Tell him I'll be delayed. Don't explain more than that." "Is everything all right?" "Not entirely. It will be 15 minutes." He hung up. Sage was still walking beside him, her grocery bag crinkling softly with each step. She had not looked up at him yet. She was watching the glass storefront of a closed shoe shop across the street, using it the way he had told her to, and her expression was utterly composed for a child of her age, which told him several things at once. "Are the men still at the stairs?" "The one in the cap is walking toward 20th. The other one stayed. He has a phone to his ear now." A brief pause. "They're not coming after us." "Good." He stopped under a cafe awning and turned to face her for the first time. She turned to face him too. Her eyes were dark brown and very steady. There was a cut on her chin, healed but visible, and her hair needed cutting and washing, and the coat she wore had a pocket that had been torn and carefully restitched with what looked like fishing line. She was studying him, the same way he was studying her. "How long have you been at that subway entrance?" he asked. She looked at the sidewalk, then back at him. "About 2 weeks." "Where do you sleep?" Another pause, the kind that meant the child was calculating how much of the truth was safe to give. "There's a maintenance alcove on the B platform." The night crew knows I'm there. They leave me alone mostly. She shifted the bag in her arms. There's a woman who sells coffee at the kiosk near the south entrance, Mrs. Galante. She gives me a cup in the morning if I help her wipe down the tables. She's there by 5. 5 in the morning. She says the early crowd tips better if the tables are clean. Dorian stood very still for a moment. The sounds of Market Street moved around them. A delivery truck, a group of students, someone's cartwheel rattling over a sidewalk seam. None of it reached him the way it normally would. He was listening to the child instead. "Where are your parents, Sage?" She answered this one without hesitating, which told him she had answered it enough times that it no longer surprised her to be asked. "My mom passed when I was 5. Heart problem. My grandma raised me after that. She's been in a memory care facility since April, in Ardmore." She adjusted her grip on the bag. "When she went in, I went into foster care. The family I was placed with, it didn't last. I've been on my own since June. It was now the 3rd week of October." He did not let his expression change, though it cost him something to keep it still. He had sat across tables from murderers and hedge fund managers, and occasionally people who were both, and had kept his face neutral through all of it. The neutral face was easy when the subject was abstract. It was harder when the subject was an 8-year-old girl who had been sleeping on a subway platform since June and had just, within the last 4 minutes, possibly saved his life. "Why did you warn me?" he asked. She looked at him squarely. "Because I watched him for 6 blocks. He wasn't doing what people do when they're going the same direction as someone. He was doing what people do when they're making sure someone doesn't see them." She paused. "I've seen both kinds. I can tell which is which." A dark sedan pulled to the curb. The driver stepped out, tall, mid-40s, wearing a gray jacket. "Mr. Fisk." He said it with the cadence of someone who had been briefed. "I'm Darnell." "Darnell, thank you for coming quickly." Dorian glanced at Sage. "This is Sage. She rides with me. Please open the rear door for her." Darnell did not blink. He opened the door. Sage looked at Dorian. "I don't have to go anywhere." "No," he agreed. "You don't have to do anything, but I'd like to take you somewhere warm and feed you a proper breakfast and ask you a few more questions if you'll allow me. After that, you're free to go wherever you'd like and we never have to speak again. Is that fair?" She looked at the car. She looked at him. She had, he noticed, the particular evaluating gaze of a person who had made a great many decisions based on reading strangers correctly, and who understood the stakes of getting one wrong. "Okay," she said. The interior of the car smelled of clean upholstery and faintly of the coffee Darnell had been drinking. Sage climbed in carefully, the grocery bag in her lap, and sat with her back perfectly straight, not quite touching the seat back. Dorian watched her notice the softness of the leather and choose not to sink into it. The way a person holds themselves apart from comfort they don't yet trust. He said nothing about it. He looked out the window instead. Roberta was waiting at the private entrance of the building, a narrow limestone townhouse. Dorian kept for client meetings, the kind of address that appeared on no public filing. She registered Sage's presence with one look and made no comment about it, except to open the door wider. "There's tea," she said, and led them inside. In the sitting room off the front hall, Sage accepted a cup of hot cocoa from Roberta, with both hands and a very quiet, "Thank you." She drank it in small, careful sips, as though she did not want to finish it too quickly. A plate of toast arrived. She ate one piece, then stopped, as though checking whether it was all right to take more. Dorian nodded toward the plate. She took another piece. Roberta appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Fisk, a word." He stepped into the hall. "The 2 men from the subway have been identified." She kept her voice below the threshold the room could carry. The Transit Authority camera footage showed the second man, the one waiting at the bottom of the stairs, has a prior arrest for assault for hire in Delaware County, 2019. He worked with a man named Cutter Briggs. She paused. "Mr. Fisk, the call that arranged for those men to be on that staircase this morning was authorized through a holding company registered to Grant Holloway." Dorian said nothing for a long moment. The clock on the mantel ticked 3 times. Grant Holloway. His son-in-law. The man he had walked his only daughter, Lenora, down the aisle toward 11 years ago, who had shaken his hand with both of his own and looked him in the eye and said he would take care of her. The man who, for the past 4 years, had been quietly maneuvering his way onto the board of the Fisk Family Foundation. The charitable trust Dorian had built over 30 years from a handful of pro bono cases into a $50 million operation funding legal aid clinics across 7 states. The man who, on the foundation's current charter, would assume executive control in the event of Dorian's incapacitation or death. He had been at dinner with Grant 3 weeks ago. Grant had twice steered the conversation away from the foundation when Dorian tried to raise it. Dorian had noticed and set it aside because he had not yet understood why it mattered. He understood now. "Call Raymond," he said carefully. "Tell him I need him here within the hour, and call Benjamin Orr." Benjamin was the assistant attorney Dorian had mentored 18 years ago, who had not forgotten it. "Tell him it's time-sensitive and I'd prefer not to use the phone." "Should I call Lenora?" He thought about his daughter. The way she laughed, sudden and a little too loud, and then embarrassed about itself, exactly like her mother. He thought about 38 years of watching her absorb hard things with both hands flat on the table and her whole body going still. "Not yet. She'll need to hear it with enough clarity that she doesn't have to wonder what's true. I won't do it wrong." Roberta nodded and went. He returned to the sitting room. Sage had finished the second piece of toast and was looking at the bookshelves along the far wall with the specific attention of a person who has not been around many books and is deciding what to make of them. "There are more in the study if you'd like to look," he said. She glanced at him. "I read okay, my grandma taught me before she got sick, but I'm slow at hard words. Reading slowly is not the same as reading poorly. I argued in front of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals once and had to ask opposing counsel how to pronounce a word. The word was estopped. He told me, and then I used it against him for the next 2 hours." Something shifted in her face. Not quite a smile, but the shape one would make. "Sage." He settled into the chair across from her. "I'd like to ask you something, and I want you to know first that whatever you say, you are not in trouble, and you are not about to be sent anywhere you don't want to go." She met his eyes and waited. "Is your grandmother? Does she know where you are?" The not-quite smile went somewhere else. "No. When they told me I was going into foster care, they said she was too sick to understand what was happening to me. They said she wouldn't know the difference." She set the cocoa cup down carefully on the side table, making sure it didn't rock. "But I don't think that's true. She always knew when I was sad, even when I didn't say anything. I think she would know I was gone." Dorian was quiet. "What is her name?" Ruth Aldine Packard." "When did you last see her?" "The day before I went to the foster family. They let me go for 20 minutes. She was having a good day. She knew who I was." Her fingers moved to the grocery bag, pressing the side of it slightly. The way a person presses something they are checking is still there. She held my hand the whole time. When I had to leave, she started to say something. The aide said we had to go before she could finish. She stopped. I don't know what she was going to say. Dorian looked at the bag. "What do you have in there, Sage?" She opened it. She took each item out and set it on the edge of the side table with the precise care of a person who did not have much and had decided that imprecision was its own kind of wastefulness. A spare sweatshirt, folded, a toothbrush in a Ziploc bag, 3 packets of crackers, a library book with a broken spine, and at the very bottom a photograph, creased across the middle and wavy at the edges from having been unfolded and refolded many times. She held it toward him. He took it. 2 people, a woman in her late 60s, gray-haired, laughing toward the camera, and a small girl on her lap laughing at the same thing. The light in the photo was summer light, long and late, the kind that comes off a back porch on a July evening. She used to say laughter was the only proof she needed that something good existed in the universe, Sage said. She said if a person could laugh at something real, that was evidence enough. Dorian handed the photograph back. He was not a man who wept. He had not wept in many years and did not weep now. But the choice was present, and acknowledging that it was present cost him something small and quiet. "I'm going to have Roberta look into your grandmother's facility tonight," he said. "I want to know how she's doing and whether there is a path to you seeing her regularly. I can't promise what we'll find, but I would like to know, on your behalf, if you'll let me." She put the photograph back at the bottom of the bag. "Nobody's asked about her in a long time," she said. "The foster family said the past was better left alone. The woman at the shelter said the paperwork was complicated." She smoothed the sweatshirt on top. "I stopped saying her name to people because they kept getting it wrong, and I didn't like the sound of it said wrong." "Ruth Aldine Packard," he said. She looked up. "I will say it correctly, and Roberta will say it correctly. We'll find her." Raymond arrived 40 minutes later, and Benjamin Orr 20 minutes after that, and for the following 2 hours the sitting room became something like a war room in miniature. Quiet, precise, moving at the speed of people who understood exactly how much was at stake. Sage had been moved at her own request to the study where Roberta had left her with the library book and a second cup of cocoa and the complete absence of pressure that Roberta was excellent at providing when she chose to. Through the cracked door, Dorian could occasionally hear the small sound of pages turning. Grant was arrested at the Foundation's offices at 11:47 in the morning, where he had been, according to Benjamin's contact, conducting a very composed review of the Foundation's asset portfolio. He asked for his attorney. His attorney, to Grant's visible surprise, was not available, reached 30 minutes earlier by a federal subpoena. Lenora was told by Dorian himself, in person, at her apartment, with Raymond sitting quietly in the corner the way a good lawyer sits when his presence is support and not testimony. She took the first part in silence, both hands flat on the kitchen table the way she had absorbed her mother's death and every other hard thing she had ever been handed. Quietly, and with her whole body. When she was ready, she asked 3 questions. All 3 were good questions. Dorian answered all 3 honestly, and without omission, because that was the only way he knew how to treat her. She did not ask him to forgive Grant. She did not say that she had not known. She said carefully, "Tell me what I can do from here." "Be well," he said. "That's all I'm asking of you tonight." She looked at him for a long moment with her mother's eyes. "You have someone with you, Dad. I can hear it. Someone quiet." "There is a child," he said. "It's a long story." "It's always a long story with you," she almost smiled. He told Sage that evening in the study, while she was still reading. She looked up from the book. He sat in the chair across from her, and he told her about the Foundation, what it did, the 7 states, the legal aid offices, the people who came through those offices who could not otherwise have afforded a lawyer, and what that meant for a person standing alone in front of a system built to be too large to face alone. He did not speak to her like a child. He had spent 40 years speaking to people in the exact register they were capable of receiving, and Sage, he had concluded sometime during the afternoon, was capable of receiving quite a lot. When he finished, she said, "What happens to it now?" "To the Foundation. It continues. It was built to continue." "What happens to you?" He looked at her. He turned the question over, genuinely. "I have a house in Chestnut Hill, larger than I need. It has a garden in the back that I am bad at keeping and a library on the 2nd floor that I am much better at." He chose his next words the way he chose all important words. "I would like to ask whether you'd consider staying there. Not as a guest passing through, as something more settled. I'm not asking you to decide tonight. I'm asking you to know the option exists every day and stays open every day, and you can say no anytime you want for any reason, and it won't change how I help you find your grandmother and make sure she's cared for properly. Those are 2 entirely separate things. The first I offer because I want to. The second I'll do regardless." She was quiet for a long time. Outside, the city settled into its early evening, a siren on Broad Street fading west, a bus exhaling at the corner stop, voices on the sidewalk below talking over each other and then laughing at something. Sage looked at the bookshelves the way she'd been looking at them all afternoon, and Dorian understood, watching her, that she was not reading the titles. She was memorizing them. "I have to go back for my things," she said at last. "By the B platform. I left my blanket there. Darnell will take us. I'll come with you." She stood, bag in hand. Then she said very quietly, facing the bookshelves rather than him, "Mr. Fisk." She was going to say she loved me, my grandma. I think that's what she was trying to say when they took me away. She pressed the side of the bag once. I know she would have. I wanted to hear it. He stood up. He did not reach for her shoulder, though the impulse was there. He had spent enough time around children who had been moved through the world with too little gentleness to know that sometimes the kindest thing was stillness. She would have, he said. And she does. Those aren't past tense things. Sage looked up at him, and the not-quite smile came back, and this time it made it all the way to both corners. Ruth Aldine Packard was in the memory care facility in Ardmore, 9 miles from Chestnut Hill. She had been a gentle and steady presence there since April, the facility director said, someone who sat by the window in the mornings and sometimes sang to herself during meals, hymns, mostly, and sometimes a song the staff couldn't identify, something low and four-noted that she began but rarely finished. She had a granddaughter listed in her file. The file noted that contact had been suspended due to placement complications. Roberta arranged the visit for the following Saturday. Dorian drove them himself. Sage sat in the passenger seat with the photograph on her lap, smoothing the crease with her thumb the entire way. The facility was a low cream-colored building set among old oak trees. A woman named Celia met them at the entrance and crouched in front of Sage without making a production of it. "Your grandma's in the sunroom," she said. "She's having a good morning. She may know you right away. She may not. But she will feel you near her. People who love each other always do, even when the words aren't there." Sage nodded once. They walked the hall together. It smelled of beeswax and lilac, and the particular warmth of a building where the heat was always kept a degree too high for older bodies. Dorian stopped at the doorway. Sage walked in. He stayed where he was, at the edge of something that did not belong to him. He heard her footsteps cross the room. He heard the small, held breath of a child looking at someone she has missed every single day for 4 months, and seeing them in all of that accumulated longing for the first time. "Grandma," Sage said, "it's me, I'm here." Then, a sound he was not prepared for, and that he would carry inside him for the rest of his life like something set down carefully and never fully picked up again. Ruth Aldine Packard, who had not spoken a full sentence in 3 months according to her chart, made a sound in her throat, low, finding itself. And then her voice followed its own trail back toward something older than words. She began to hum. 4 notes, slow and rising. The first phrase of a song Dorian did not recognize but understood immediately, the way music from a world you've never visited can still tell you exactly what it means. Sage began to cry. She cried quietly, the way someone cries who has been holding it in for a very long time and has finally found the one person it is safe to spend it on. Dorian stayed in the doorway. He did not go in. The room was not his. He arranged for the Foundation's funding arm to cover Ruth's care in full. He did it without telling Sage in advance. And when Celia mentioned it to her on their second visit the following Saturday, Sage came and found him in the hallway and stood in front of him and was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You didn't have to do that." "I know," he said. She nodded and went back in. Grant pleaded guilty 14 months later. The Foundation's charter was rewritten with 3 independent co-trustees. Lenora came for Sunday dinners, at first tentatively, and then with the certainty of someone reclaiming territory she'd been briefly talked out of believing was hers. Sage enrolled in the school 4 blocks from Chestnut Hill in November. She was late on her first homework assignment, and on time for everyone after that. She worked her way through the library on the 2nd floor, in alphabetical order by author's last name, a project she informed Dorian would take approximately 4 years, and that she intended to take seriously. She visited Ruth every Saturday for as long as Ruth lived, which was 3 more years. She brought the photograph every time, and sometimes Ruth knew who she was, and sometimes she didn't, but she always hummed when Sage came in, always the same 4 notes, the beginning of the song, rising. The photograph sits now on the desk in the 2nd floor library, in a plain wooden frame Sage bought herself, with the first money she ever earned, from weekend shifts at a bookstore on Walnut Street the summer she was 15. The crease across the middle is still visible if you look. She has never tried to make it go away.